Great. So first we have Melanie Sun, a review of the current education for children with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder and the effect of COVID-19.
Hello, today I'll be presenting a review of the current education for children with ADHD and how COVID-19 has affected them. First, I will do a brief introduction on ADHD, also known as Attention Deficit and Hyperactivity Disorder, and cover its prevalence, symptoms, how it affects the lives of children, and available treatments. ADHD is one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders in the United States, and according to the 2016 National Survey of Children's Health, about 9.4% of children have ever been diagnosed. The upward trend represents the increasing prevalence of parent-reported ADHD diagnoses in children in recent years. It's unknown if this increase is because more children are receiving diagnoses or if there is actually an increase of children with the disorder. Despite this, it is important that there is an increased awareness of ADHD. The symptoms of ADHD are different for each child, but the disorder can generally be categorized as predominantly inattentive type, predominantly hyperactive impulsive type, or combined type. Predominantly inattentive children may have difficulty paying attention to details, following directions, and staying organized, while predominantly hyperactive impulsive children often find it challenging to stay seated in class and work quietly, and combined type children exhibit symptoms of both types. Children with ADHD also lack executive functions which include sustained attention, planning, organization, and working memory, which correlate with a student's academic achievement. The chart on the right breaks down the severity of symptoms that children experience with data from the same 2016 survey. Statistics show that affected individuals have a higher mortality rate and are of greater risk for other mental health conditions. At school, affected children show academic underachievement, are more likely to repeat a grade, are more likely to be expelled or suspended, and are 4 to 5 times more likely to require special education services. The symptoms of ADHD can be treated with medication and therapy. The use of medication is more common among older children, as shown in the orange line in the graph below. Therapies such as behavioral parent training and behavioral classroom management are more common among younger children. Now I would like to cover the current education for these children by introducing IDEA and Section 504, the two federal laws that govern special education in the United States, homeschooling, and how a parent's economic status can affect a child's opportunities. Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, a child with symptoms that make it extremely difficult for them to learn in a traditional classroom can qualify for an Individualized Education Program, or IEP plan. It will include information such as the student's goals, extracurricular activities, and behavior, and it also provides any special accommodations in the classroom the student may need, as well as services outside of school. Section 504 under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 provides a 504 plan, and it is more common for children with ADHD. It is similar to an IEP plan, but provides for those who do not show as severe symptoms. It's less formal than an IEP plan, and under it, children remain in the classroom with accommodations, and other special education services outside of the school are not provided. Accommodations provided by the two plans can vary, but they may include the teacher providing the student with additional time to take tests, more detailed instructions for assignments, special seating away from distractions, specific cues to increase focus during lessons, and ways to encourage cooperative behavior. Children with ADHD may also receive behavioral therapy in the classroom, which focuses on positive behaviors and decreases the frequency of negative behaviors. It also promotes engagement, enhances the social and emotional learning of children. The homeschooling experience also varies, but students are able to receive a highly individualized education. Some parents choose to hire a teacher who will design a curriculum similar to that of a conventional school, while others will allow their children to follow a student-led curriculum. Due to the lack of restrictions, teaching can be done almost anywhere. In an interview of homeschooled children with ADHD, several students stated that they had access to resources that are normally prohibited in traditional schools. A family's economic status has a large effect on the amount of benefits a child can receive from the IEP and 504 plans. These laws are heavily reliant on a parent's ability to advocate for their child, and working low-income parents often do not have the time or money to do so. Schools in underprivileged communities lack adequate resources, so they can't provide their students with the same services as those available at other schools. The teachers at these underfunded schools are often inexperienced and burdened by heavy workloads, so it will be harder for them to develop elaborate IEP plans and ensure that the needs of all the students are met. Homeschooling requires parents to spend a lot of time at home with their children, which is again difficult for working parents. Homeschoolers may also have to spend additional money for their own resources, which underprivileged families may have difficulty affording. This leads us to how the current COVID-19 pandemic has affected children with ADHD in the United States, and I will be covering some challenges children faced and how parents have become more involved with the education of their children. In March this year, it was stated in a document released by the United States Department of Education that IDEA Section 504 and other laws do not address a situation in which elementary and secondary schools are closed for an extended period of time. So, special education providers were not required to design learning plans specific to a distance learning environment. In addition to the weak support from the special education providers, children lack contact with their teachers in the new distance learning environment. Students who already experience difficulties staying on task and organized due to the symptoms of the disorder may find that it is even more challenging to concentrate on their schoolwork and allocate their time due to a lack of structure in the day. Instructions given virtually may be challenging for them to understand because they aren't able to clarify certain points face-to-face with their teachers. As a result of these changes, as well as other circumstances they may face, children with ADHD are under increased levels of stress and may need additional support from those around them. Educators and parents are also worried that special education students will have regressed in their learning and social ability when they return to school due to an extended period of time away. Professionals have provided several recommendations for parents who are coping with these new circumstances, which include communicating with teachers and asking questions frequently, providing their children with a quiet workspace away from distractions, keeping learning periods short, and supporting a child's positive performance with specific feedback. It is also recommended for parents to encourage physical activity throughout the day, which can help ease a child's symptoms of hyperactivity and reduce stress. They also recommend a visual schedule, similar to the one on the right, so that each day can be organized and well-structured. However, even if parents are doing everything they can to support their children, they still do not have the knowledge and experience of professionals, and some parents may not have time to step into so many roles at once. So many families are feeling burdened during this time. One parent of a special education student stated in an interview, "I try to do a schedule, and I try to get something to happen every day, and every day I feel like a failure." Therefore, there is undoubtedly a need for additional resources and support for these families, especially since individuals with lower socioeconomic statuses were already unable to have full access to the resources that the federal laws provide prior to COVID-19. This also calls attention other potential groups that aren't able to benefit from the laws that are meant to protect them, and reflects how children with ADHD, despite having their rights governed by the same laws, can experience different educational opportunities. With so many families transitioning to distance learning, parents are taking on the roles of teachers and creating strategies of their own. Students who were already homeschooled were not as impacted as those who attended traditional schools, so there is a possibility that in the future, homeschooling may become a more popular option for these families. Even as schools begin to reopen in certain states, children with ADHD must be provided with adequate support regardless of how they are learning, both now and in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Melanie. So now it's 3 minutes for any questions.
So question from Sina Chang. Are there any specific policies I would advocate for to close the education gap exacerbated by COVID-19? I think since, especially for families that don't have this environment to focus, some parents who can't focus a lot of their time on their children because of circumstances, for example, if they lost their job or if they have financial difficulties because of COVID-19, I think that it'd be beneficial for policies that provide support for these children, regardless of their socioeconomic statuses, and possibly to create a specific curriculum or plan for these children that everyone can follow and schools can implement so that these children can receive an education that will benefit them even during this time.
I think we also have a question in the Q&A. Melanie was wondering what inspired you to research this topic?
So I chose this topic because when I transitioned to distance learning, I thought it was difficult because I kind of couldn't structure my day since there wasn't like school to help me like maintain a proper schedule. So I wanted to research how other people were coping with these new circumstances. And then I came across that I realized that children with special needs and children with ADHD in particular are having a lot of difficulties, and so I wanted to learn more about it.
Great. Thank you, Melanie. I think that's all the time we have